Welcome back to Sikkim 365 Radio. It's time for Craig Smoak's Off the Radar. Brought to you by Pickup Outfitters. Since 1997, we've been outfitting trucks, SUVs, and vans at 220 Lake Air Drive or createacommotion.com.
All right, welcome into Off the Radar. Taking a look at a few stories outside our normal purview, and I'll still, dabble in some college football, certainly in today's segment, and also in some Baylor football, even though we talk a lot about that. But just kind of covering the bases that we may not cover at times during our discussions. And I will start off with some Baylor and college football. The East-West Shrine Bowl announced some new additions today. And Baylor offensive lineman Xavier Newman Johnson has officially accepted his 2022 East-West Shrine Bowl invitation. So has wide receiver Tyquan Thornton. He will be headed to the Shrine Bowl. And it was actually almost a couple of weeks ago now at this point, and I don't think we ever really talked about it, but cornerback Kalen Barnes accepted a Shrine Bowl invitation. So those two will join Barnes and give Baylor three guys in the East-West Shrine game. We know as well that Jalen Petrie, Terrell Bernard are going to be in the Reese Senior Bowl. And this should be a fun pro day this time around. Last year was weird as all get out, and they didn't really have a whole lot of options either for NFL scouts to choose from. But this year will be wildly different. You got Bernard, you got Petrie, you got Thornton, you got some of these linemen. So good for those guys, and cool seeing those all-star invitations go out. Xavier Newman Johnson, I mean, you think about where he was and the hurdles that he's overcome, and Randall's talked a lot about just opening him up as a person and getting him to trust people, and they've done that effectively. And now here he is playing in an all-star game, and then Tyquan Thornton, a young man from Miami, made the choice to join Matt Rule and go cross country and get out of Miami and go make a new life for himself. And it's been a struggle. He came in a rail thin, kind of raw prospect, and they've slowly but surely put some weight on him. He's the best he's looked, I think, throughout his career right now. I mean, just in terms of catching the football, running, everything. So that's two kind of that's just two to most people out there. That'll just be two guys going to an all-star game. But if you covered them, you know that these two guys have been on quite the journey. So I'm happy for Thornton and Johnson.
His ability this year. There was a play over the middle against Texas Tech, and it was like a 3rd down and 6 or 7. He caught a pass that was behind him. His ability to go up or get the 50-50 balls has been almost spectacular. Mm-hmm. Not flawless, not perfect. I think he dropped the touchdown in one game, but he has been money.
Well, and he's gotten really smooth running his routes too. I mean, he's fast. He's one of those guys who moves really really quick and doesn't look like he is. And it just I've been impressed, especially last year. He was. And not completely all his own fault. I mean, they had a problem. There was nothing good about the offense last year. Everybody got an F. Every single thing on the offense got an F. But he was one of those things that you wonder, like, well, man, that was a real drop-off. Like, he can't win on any routes all of a sudden and all this, and he's certainly doing it now.
So I want to kind of go over some of the coaching carousel stuff and then mention the hot rumor here in the state of Texas today. But we just learned about Bronco Mendenhall being out at Virginia, a bit out of nowhere. And so now the Virginia Cavaliers' job is opened up officially. And so good luck to the Cavs as they go through and finding who their new guy is going to be. But elsewhere, SMU announced SMU didn't announce, but Pete Thamel reported that they are expecting to hire Missouri assistant Casey Woods as SMU's new offensive coordinator. You got Rhett Lashley there, so obviously he's going to have a big say in the offense. But that's just notable that SMU and Rhett Lashley, with that new staff, have now or look like they're going to be hiring Missouri assistant Casey Woods. He's the tight ends coach and recruiting coordinator for the Tigers, but looks like he will be the Mustangs' new OC. By the way, how weird is it seeing Kaz Kazadi in TCU gear and purple and stuff?
Yeah,
that's
different.
Bizarre.
I wonder if that guy will apologize to him.
Yeah, I don't know. Depends on how many games they win.
Yeah.
Colorado State fired Steve Adazio after 4 seasons, just 4 wins over 2 seasons. His time is over. So now Colorado State, a team that was kind of talked about with Big 12 expansion and was sort of on that edge, I guess, never quite over that edge. And, maybe if all hell were to break loose and like Oklahoma State bolted for the Pac-12 and Tech went and Baylor went to the ACC or something, then maybe Colorado State would get that invite. But they are now going to be coach searching because Steve Adazio's out. They'll pay him $3 million to move on out the door. So not a huge thing there, but just a notable coaching move and another job that is now open.
On one thing, college football, Tommy Reese, who's at Notre Dame, and they kept him, and he was getting big money offers from LSU.
He chose to stay.
Yeah, he is now flying around in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish jet as if you'd see a head coach flying around in the Notre Dame Fighting Irish jet. So that's I thought I saw that picture from him. Show goes on. That's pretty cool for him, too.
Yeah, that is cool. Miami is looking for an AD. Big athletic director search going on now, but I mentioned this because I know Florida State's also searching for an AD. But Brett McMurphy had a really interesting tweet. He said multiple Miami AD candidates told Action Network headquarters, UM's search is a mess with more than 50 board of trustees and several donors involved. Everyone is in charge. No one is in charge. They don't know what they want to do with Manny Diaz. Half want him gone. Half want him to stay. And then Dennis Dodd actually responded to that and said, was told the number of trustees is 68. And the same word was used, mess, by a person approached about the AD job.
Well, if you want to know why Miami doesn't do well in sports anymore, that's why, especially in football, because you have to have alignment from top to bottom. And even so, you can have if you have a university president that you think might be a good leader, if they have to answer to 68 trustees, there's 68 trustees. I use this analogy all the time, but you couldn't, if I walked into the room and said, okay, free pizza for everybody, but just to keep it simple, we have to agree on 3 separate toppings. So I'll be back in 20 minutes and you guys tell me which 3 toppings we want. There would be blood on the floor over pizza for 68 people. It's ridiculous. You need about 9.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. So we'll see where Miami goes, but it doesn't sound very promising when you got that many voices for one choice. Brett McMurphy announced NCAA's added a 42nd bowl game. That's what we were all clamoring for. Screw the playoff change. We want more bowl games that don't have any bearing on it. But the NCAA, a 42nd bowl game. So that will mean that all 84 teams that are eligible will be able to play in a bowl game. The game will be in Texas, no exact location, no date determined, but it will air on ESPN. And this bowl game will be Hawaii, or this new bowl game will allow Hawaii to play in the Hawaii Bowl versus Memphis. So future, perhaps Big 12 member Memphis. That still remains to be seen, but that will allow for the Hawaii Bowl, Hawaii versus Memphis, and we're a lot of details, but a new Texas Bowl. For those that love bowl games.
Hey, we got a stadium right here.
Hey, the Waco Bowl. That'd be the Magnolia Bowl.
Let's get the hotel money. Let's go.
Are we on the internet so I can say anything I want?
Yeah, sure.
That's just ridiculous.
That's what you were going to say?
No, I was going to say. I said
they're just trying to get
say ridiculous.
There's teams eligible, so they're just trying to get teams to play. I get it, though. I get it. It's not that big of a deal. I mean, really, it's just kind of silly how many teams there are and how many games there are. I mean, that's something that has definitely gotten way too bloated over the years. All right, hammering through some other stories. Lincoln Riley USC, we know it's been a big deal, all week long, ever since late Saturday night. And the changes keep on coming for USC and for Oklahoma, and that includes on the recruiting trail. OU's had a massive exodus, at least it feels massive in reading the tweets of guys who have entered the transfer portal, key players on this past year's team, and not to mention some other guys who have, now been flipping commitments or decommitting. And Lincoln Riley grabbed another one from that OU commit list as a 5-star running back, Raleek Brown, has flipped from Oklahoma to USC. This is not a shocking flip because he is a California guy. He's from Santa Ana. Went to Mater D High School, or is it Mater Day?
Mater Day
High School. So he's right. I mean, again, this is Riley and that California connection, man. That's why that made so much sense. Is just how much recruiting he does in Cali, especially with the top prospects. So now he's flipped a 5-star running back, and Oklahoma is just trying to stem the bleeding while they can until whoever the next coach is announced is announced.
Yeah, his tweet was pretty cool. I saw it. It was "Mom, I'm staying home," and then an infographic that rivaled like a movie poster. So
yeah. All right, a couple of other notes, and then the big coaching rumor. That's not a head coaching rumor by any means, but just is of interest. Texas Tech announced today a $25 million gift for a new south end zone. They also have, like a facility that they're going to be building as well for the football program. It looks like a $25 million gift from the Board of Regents, and former letter winner Cody Campbell will kick off the fundraising. It's a 3-part master plan, with the big part of it being the south end zone construction to Jones AT&T Stadium. They're still discussing various concepts, and there's a lot of details still to be sorted out. But big time, projects moving forward over at Texas Tech. Meanwhile, Texas has announced that they're getting even more into the NIL. For one, running back Bijan Robinson announced that he's got an NIL deal with DAZN, the network that you might see a lot of boxing on. Said he's a big boxing fan, and so basically he's going to be like a spokesperson for DAZN. And, I guess that will tie into his love of boxing or combat sports. He's going to be, I guess the official title is a brand ambassador. So if you watch that channel, then maybe you see Bijan on a commercial or something like that. But that is his latest NIL deal. So that's kind of outside the box and kind of cool. Yeah. But Texas also announced the Clark Field Collective. It's a $10 million name, image, likeness fund. Basically, this is our pool of money to pay blue chips, is what this is. But just with an official title to make it sound as legitimate as possible. Bijan, I just said he's got the endorsement deal with DAZN, and he's got several other deals as well. But sports marketer Nick Shuley announced Wednesday a partnership called the Clark Field Collective that will help facilitate NIL opportunities with Texas athletes. Prominent donors, Austin business leaders, and former players like Kenny Vaccaro, basketball star TJ Ford will help oversee what's starting out as a $10 million commitment. And their goal is to have the largest fund in the country dedicated to NIL activities for Texas athletics.
That Clark Field Collective sounds kind of like Stratford Oakmont, from Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
They call it like it just sounds so official.
Yeah. They've had other guys. Cameron Dicker got a boot deal, and you had Bijan obviously with a bunch as well. But more NIL stuff is coming UT's way, and it may have something to do with this guy. Y'all been looking at the rumors surrounding Gary Patterson?
Yes.
And UT and the possibility that he could be joining the Longhorn staff. Now, I want to say this. There are going to be other options for Gary Patterson. It's not like this is some done deal, but there is a lot of smoke on the Texas side of things about the potential of Gary Patterson joining their staff in some capacity. I don't know, what all the other talk has been, but I would think like defensive coordinator would make a lot of sense, even though we were told by Texas fans they had the greatest. How could you not know about Coach K? And maybe he's on his way out after 1 year. I don't know. Maybe there's another role for Patterson, but what do you think? Gary Patterson, he never liked Texas. He hated Texas when he was at TCU, but hey, you're not at TCU anymore, so.
His old boss is the AD there.
Yep.
And Chris Del Conte.
Yep.
The other thing is, he may hate Texas, but he's also a spiteful little son of a gun too.
Oh, yeah.
And what better way, because I'm sure he doesn't feel he was rightfully pushed out at TCU. So what better way to get back at them than to go to Texas? Of course, he'll only play them one time before they leave, or maybe two. But
any thoughts on anything?
Gary Patterson's a hell of a football coach. That wouldn't surprise me, but I don't know if that's the right thing to do. If UT's pretty good about when somebody beats them, they'll go find them.
Oh, yeah, they go hire him.
I do think this, though. I don't know, and maybe he'd be different because he's older and all that, but if I'm the head coach of a football team, I'm not sure I want Gary
I'm with
Patterson
you.
as
I'm
an
with
assistant.
Hey, look, Sarkisian, in the position that he's in, if he starts out next year and he's like 3-3, what stops interim head coach Gary Patterson at you know what I mean?
Yep.
So, absolutely, that has to be taken into consideration. I mean, that's for Sark to decide, and ultimately for Gary Patterson to decide, what job he wants to take. But he's going to have a job somewhere in some capacity. That much is a given. And just a couple more notes here. ECU, East Carolina, announced they've extended head football coach Mike Houston through the 2026 season. So while a lot of people are announcing changes, ECU announces stability with Mike Houston. And finally, the MLB is locked out. We saw this coming. We knew this was coming, but it's officially the first work stoppage for Major League Baseball since the 94-95 strike. And we saw in the build-up to this a flurry of mega deals, and even the Rangers got in on the action, which is very unlike them, quite frankly, over the last few years. But, Paul, Here's baseball stepping on its own toes again.
We knew it was coming, and hopefully it'll be a good thing in the long run. I'm glad they're doing it now before the season, and they've got plenty of time to get this worked out before any real time is lost if they're smart about it. I have no faith in Rob Manfred, though, as the commissioner.
I don't either.
The one thing is, I don't think people liked Bud Selig, but you kind of knew Bud Selig was a get-it-done guy. He knew, okay, what's best for the overall thing? Let's get it done. And whatever I didn't like about Bud Selig, I knew that as a baseball fan, that he would at least get things done. I have no faith in Rob Manfred to do that.
I don't either. I don't trust his leadership. I don't trust his vision of baseball. I know baseball needs changes, but I'm not sure he's the guy to get them there. And it just seems like his whole tenure has kind of just been more negative than anything else, and now you add this onto it. First work stoppage since '94,
and I don't think he and Tony Clark, who's the head of the players union, I don't think he and Tony see eye to eye on anything. So I expect this to be, this isn't Gene Upshaw and Paul Tagliabue, who had a very good working relationship and in spite of different issues got things done. And I know there's Gene Upshaw left a lot of things on the table for the NFL players, but this is not that kind of working relationship, and that's what worries me.
Nope, and just wanted to mention that before this stoppage occurred, I mentioned, free agency and all the big deals. More than $1.4 billion were committed to free agents in baseball in the build-up to their work stoppage. And
$500 million of the Rangers.
Yeah, the $500 million were the Rangers. And there was one signing that I never asked you about, Paul, but what did you think of Max Scherzer to the Mets?
I love Max Scherzer. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He's really intense. Good for the Mets. I think that's you lost a big time pitcher, but you brought in one with some World Series experience and a guy that elevates the level of your entire team. So yeah, good for the Mets. I was holding out hope that maybe the Red Sox would sign him. Didn't happen. It's fine. He's 37 years old, so This is the last go of it for Max Scherzer, but he's still very effective, and he's still a bulldog out there. So good for the Mets.
Yep, and finally tonight, Dallas Cowboys football against the New Orleans Saints. My sister and her boyfriend actually in New Orleans right now going to that game. But yeah, tonight 5-6 Saints hosting the 7-4 Cowboys. 7:20 kickoff Central Time. And there are a few things off the radar.
Thank you, Craig. Appreciate that. And speaking of the NFL, John McClain, Hall of Fame writer from the Houston Chronicle, will join us. He'll join us next, in fact, on Sikkim 365 Radio and 365 Sports. All right,